As I said at the beginning of this module, it's useful to understand the topic of standards because they are all around us, regardless if you're a student using a standard method for a research process, or if you're a conservation professional, referring to an NRCS conservation practice standard.
You'll all be familiar with the concept of standards, even if you don't recognize it, because there are, for example, curriculum standards, which you all will have to pass, for example, high school, like this cartoon nicely illustrates. A standard is a recognized and strenuously reviewed document, a physical document that sets a standard for a given product or process. For example, our curriculum standards. A standard sets the minimum bar that needs to be achieved for a given process or product. Standards ensure that characteristics and performance of products are consistent, that people are using the same definitions and terms, and that products are tested for quality in the same way. You can have design standards, product standards, curriculum standards. For us, conservation practice standards. There's a lot of different kinds of standards, but they all refer to a specific document with quality control guidance in it. ASTM is one of the most important standards organizations in the world, and from their perspective, a standard is designed to enhance safety and improve the quality of consumer and industrial products. From my perspective, as a researcher, a standard helps establish scientific procedures that are defensible and repeatable. For example, I've used standards to help determine the permeability, or in other words, the saturated hydraulic conductivity through porous media. Remember Darcy's Law, where we talked about KSAT, or saturated hydraulic conductivity? Well, there's a standard method from ASTM on how to test for permeability, in this case through granular soils. There's also standard methods for how to do a sieve analysis. If you're doing particle size distribution of soil or wood chips or steel slag or other media, there's a standard method for doing the particle size distribution test. And then there's also a standard method, this is from ASAE, which is now ASABE. There's a standard method for how to dry biomass or how to dry agricultural crops. So another important thing I want to show you or highlight with all these standards documents that I just showed on the screen. Remember I said a standard is a strenuously recognized and strenuously reviewed document. These documents are all reviewed by technical experts on a periodic schedule. So you see reaffirmed March 2006, originally approved July 2001. These documents are reviewed on a periodic schedule to make sure they're still valid and to continue to provide the minimum bar for quality. You know, as technology develops, we want to make sure the standards are providing the minimum bar based on what technology allows us to do. ASTM, like I mentioned before, and ISO, International Organization for Standardization, are two of the largest standard bodies in the world, but there's also other groups that issue standards. For example, if you're working in the field of water and wastewater, APHA, American Public Health Association, issues the standard methods for water and wastewater. So if you're working in wastewater analysis, this is the book to have. This is a standard method. The USDA NRCS also has standards. I mentioned a minute ago conservation practice standards. Here are two conservation practice standards from the NRCS. These are our recipe guidebooks for how to design these conservation practices. We'll talk about these conservation practice standards more in Unit 3 when we're discussing the conservation practices. And then where I'm really going with this whole lesson today is that ASABE, the American Society for Agricultural and Biological Engineers, has standards related to the design of drainage systems. There's a standard for both design and construction of subsurface drains on ag lands and humid areas, and there's a standard for design, construction, and maintenance of subsurface drains in arid and semi-arid areas. So one last note about ASABE standards. There's also a nice standard that comes from ASABE that is a terminology standard. So one of the points of the standard documents was to make sure we're all defining terms and using terms consistently. So ASABE has a soil and water terminology standard for anyone doing anything with soil and water. I've clipped out some of the drainage related definitions for you from this standard on the next slide. The next couple slides for you to browse. We're going to talk about some of these terms, things like clay tile or drainage coefficient or drainage pattern, laterals, tile versus mold drains, outlets. We're going to talk about all these definitions, so it would be good for you to review them. And that's it for standards. Thanks for joining.